When a 32-year-old billionaire collapsed on a rain-soaked Manhattan street, invisible to the thousands who passed him by, only one person stopped. A broke waitress who didn't know she was saving the man her dead father had saved 20 years before. What happened next turned a forgotten promise into an empire of second chances, a lonely little girl into a daughter, and two strangers into something neither saw coming. Stay until the end to see how one act of kindness can rewrite two broken lives. Hit like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hit like needles. Ethan Morey didn't notice anymore. He'd stopped noticing most things about 15 minutes ago, right around the time his left hand stopped responding to commands, and his vision started doing that tunnel thing again. Now he was just focused on breathing. In, out, in, out. The bench underneath him was split down the middle, wet wood digging into his spine. But sitting was better than lying down because lying down meant giving up, and Ethan Morey didn't give up. Except his body seemed to have other ideas. The street in front of him blurred into streaks of yellow cab lights and red brake lights, all of it bleeding together like a watercolor someone had left out in the rain. Somewhere to his left, a group of people hurried past under a shared umbrella, their laughter sharp and distant. None of them looked at him. Why would they? Manhattan had 10,000 guys sitting on benches in the rain. He was just one more. His phone was gone. Wallet, too. He remembered that much. The kid couldn't have been more than 19, hoodie pulled low, hands fast. Ethan had been leaning against a building on West 47th, trying to remember why he'd come to this particular block, when the world tilted sideways and his knees stopped working. The kid must have thought it was his lucky day. Drunk businessman, easy target. By the time Ethan's vision cleared enough to understand what happened, the kid was already gone and Ethan's pockets were empty. That was fine. The phone didn't matter. The wallet didn't matter. Nothing in them would help him now anyway. What mattered was that he couldn't feel his left arm. His words kept coming out wrong when he tried to speak, and he was pretty sure he was having a stroke, or had already had one. Verb tenses were getting confusing. A woman walked by, closer than the others, and Ethan tried to reach out. His hand moved maybe 3 inches before falling back to his lap like dead weight. "Help," he said, or tried to say. What came out sounded more like hep, or maybe hip. The woman's eyes flicked toward him for half a second before she pulled her coat tighter and walked faster. He didn't blame her. The Ethan Morey sitting on this bench, hair plastered to his skull, designer suit soaked through and shapeless, one eye half closed, mouth slack, didn't look like the Ethan Morey whose face showed up in Forbes and TechCrunch. That Ethan Morey wore $1,000 suits that actually fit. That Ethan Morey gave keynote speeches to rooms full of people who hung on every word. That Ethan Morey ran a company worth $8 billion and had a daughter who called him daddy and a penthouse that overlooked Central Park. This Ethan Morey looked like every other wet, broken thing the city chewed up and spit out. The bench creaked as he shifted, trying to find a position that didn't make his left side scream. Lightning spiderwebbed across the sky, throwing everything into sharp relief for just a second before the darkness slammed back down. Thunder followed, so close it rattled in his chest. He should move, find a hospital, flag down a cab, somehow convince the driver he wasn't dangerous, get help. Except he couldn't make his legs work right, and even if he could, he didn't know where he was anymore. The buildings all looked the same. The streets all looked the same. He'd grown up in Tokyo, moved to New York at 16 with nothing but a backpack and a head full of impossible dreams, and he'd learned every corner of the city in those early years. Walked every street because walking was free and subway tokens weren't. He knew New York better than he knew anywhere. But right now, he couldn't have told you which borough he was in. His vision doubled, then tripled, then snapped back to normal with a clarity that felt almost cruel. Across the street, through the rain and the dark, he could see a diner. One of those old-fashioned places with chrome trim and red vinyl booths, the kind that should have died out 30 years ago but kept hanging on through sheer stubbornness. Warm light spilled out onto the wet sidewalk. Inside he could see people, movement, life. He tried to stand, made it about halfway up before his legs betrayed him and he dropped back onto the bench hard enough to hurt. A fresh wave of rain hit him in the face, and for a second everything went white. When his vision came back, there was someone standing in front of him, small. That was his first thought. Whoever this was, they were small. And close. Too close, probably, for a stranger in New York, But Ethan's sense of appropriate distance had stopped working around the same time as his sense of appropriate hand coordination. "Sir?" A woman's voice, soft enough that he almost didn't hear it over the rain. "Sir, are you okay?" Ethan tried to focus. The woman, girl, woman? Hard to tell with the rain in his eyes, was crouched down in front of him, one hand holding an umbrella that didn't look like it was doing much good against this kind of storm, the other hand extended toward him like she was approaching a wounded animal. Which, fair. That's probably exactly what he looked like. Ethan started, and the words came out slurred, wrong. He tried again. The woman's expression changed, concern shifting into something sharper, more focused. She moved closer, and now Ethan could see her properly. Late 20s, maybe 30, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a uniform he recognized from the diner across the street. White shirt, black pants, name tag pinned crooked. "Can you tell me your name?" she asked, and her voice was still soft, but there was steel underneath it now. "Sir, can you understand me?" "Hi," Ethan said, which was wrong. That was Japanese. He meant to say yes. He tried again. "Yes, I can," but whatever he could do got lost somewhere between his brain and his mouth. The woman's eyes widened slightly. She leaned in closer, close enough that he could smell coffee and rain and something like vanilla. "Did you just speak Japanese?" Ethan blinked, tried to nod. The motion made everything spin. "Okay," the woman said, and she was definitely talking to herself now, not to him. "Okay? Okay, think." Then, in careful, slightly accented Japanese, "Can you understand me?" The relief hit him so hard he almost fell off the bench. "Yes," he said in Japanese, and the word came out clear, clean, right. "Yes, I can understand." Her whole face changed. Whatever wall of professional concern she'd been hiding behind cracked open, and what came through was something that looked almost like recognition, though that couldn't be right because he'd never seen this woman before in his life. "What's your name?" she asked, still in Japanese. "Ethan," he managed. "Ethan Mori." "Ethan," she repeated, and she said it right, got the emphasis right, not Ethan like most Americans, but A-Tan. "I'm Lily. You're hurt. I need to get you help." "No hospital," Ethan said, which was stupid. He definitely needed a hospital, but the words came out anyway. "No, I can't." "You're having a stroke," Lily said, and there was no softness in her voice now, just flat certainty. "Or you've already had one. I'm calling an ambulance." "No money," Ethan said. "No phone. No, I don't care about money," Lily cut him off. "I care about you not dying on this bench." She was already pulling out her phone, fingers moving fast. "Stay with me, okay? Keep talking to me. Tell me what happened." "Looking for someone," Ethan said, and the rain was getting heavier, pounding against Lily's umbrella like it was trying to break through. "I was looking for someone, and then I—" The words slipped away from him. He tried to catch them. Couldn't. "It's okay," Lily said. Her hand came to rest on his shoulder, light but steady. "It's okay, you don't have to explain. Just stay awake, all right? Help is coming." "Promise," Ethan said, which made no sense. That wasn't what he meant to say at all. "Promise, I promise," Lily said immediately. "I promise I'll stay with you. You're not alone." That wasn't what he meant. He meant the other promise, the one he'd made 20 years ago and never kept. The reason he was out here in the rain in the first place. He'd been looking for the family, Daniel Carter's family. He'd finally tracked down the address, finally worked up the nerve to knock on doors and ask questions and face the guilt he'd been carrying for half his life. But the world had other plans, apparently, because somewhere between his office and West 47th Street, his brain decided to short-circuit and dump him on a park bench in the middle of a thunderstorm. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Lily was talking on her phone now, rapid-fire English too fast for him to follow in his current state, and Ethan felt himself starting to slip. Not dying, at least he didn't think he was dying, but slipping away, consciousness becoming optional. His eyes wanted to close, his body wanted to shut down. "No," Lily said sharply, switching back to Japanese, her hand on his face now, forcing him to look at her. "No, stay here, stay awake. Tell me about the person you were looking for." "Old friend," Ethan said, the words thick and slow. "He saved me, long time ago. I never said thank you." "You'll tell them," Lily said. You'll find them and you'll tell them, but first you have to stay awake. Tired, Ethan admitted. I know, but not yet. Talk to me about Tokyo. You're from Tokyo? Yes. What part? Shinjuku, Ethan said, and the word pulled up memories, bright and sharp. Narrow streets, neon lights, the smell of yakitori from street vendors. His mother's laugh. His father's disappointed silence. I left when I was 16. That's young, Lily said. She was checking his pulse now, fingers pressed against his wrist, and even through the fog in his head, Ethan noticed that her hands were shaking. Why did you leave? Didn't belong there, Ethan said. Didn't belong anywhere. Thought maybe here. He gestured vaguely at the city around them, the gesture turning into something clumsy and wrong halfway through. Maybe here would be different. Was it? Yes, Ethan said. And no, I don't know. Somewhere in the distance, sirens started. Lily's shoulders dropped half an inch, relief visible even through the rain. Okay, she said. Okay, they're coming. You're going to be fine. You don't know that, Ethan said. Yes, I do, Lily shot back, and there was something fierce in her voice now, something that didn't match her small frame or soft features or the way she'd been shaking 2 seconds ago. Because you survived 16 years old in a foreign country with nothing. You survived whatever brought you to that bench. You're going to survive this. The sirens were getting louder. Red and blue lights started painting the wet street in rotating colors. What's your full name? Lily asked, switching back to English now, presumably for the paramedics. Ethan Moore, is there a middle name? Do you have family I can call? Sophie, Ethan said. His daughter's name came out clear and clean, the most important word he knew. My daughter, Sophie. She's at home with her nanny. Someone needs to tell her. We will, Lily promised. What's your address? How old is Sophie? 7, Ethan said. She just turned 7. She made me eat cake for breakfast. That sounds like a good daughter, Lily said, and she was smiling now even though her eyes looked scared. She's going to want her dad back, so you need to stay with me, okay? The ambulance pulled up, lights blazing, and suddenly there were people everywhere. Hands on him, voices asking questions, someone cutting through his jacket, which seemed unnecessary and expensive, but whatever. Ethan tried to track all of it, tried to stay present, but it was like trying to hold water in his hands. He caught fragments. Lily talking to the paramedics, giving them information he didn't remember telling her. Someone asking about drugs, alcohol, medical history. Someone else saying something about possible CVA, which Ethan's brain helpfully translated as cerebrovascular accident, which was a fancy way of saying stroke. They were loading him onto a stretcher now. The rain had somehow gotten even worse, turning the world into nothing but water and noise. Ethan tried to find Lily in the chaos, tried to say something, but she was already there, one hand wrapped around his, her face close to his. I'm coming with you, she said in Japanese, to the hospital. You're not doing this alone. You don't have to, Ethan started. I know I don't have to, Lily interrupted. I want to. One of the paramedics said something about only family being allowed in the ambulance. Lily looked at the paramedic and said, with absolutely no hesitation, I'm his sister. The paramedic looked skeptical. Lily was clearly American and Ethan was clearly Japanese, and they looked nothing alike. But apparently it was too wet and too late and too complicated to argue, because he just shrugged and helped Lily climb in. The doors slammed shut. The ambulance lurched into motion, and Ethan Morey, who'd spent the last 7 years holding the entire world at arm's length, found himself holding the hand of a stranger who'd lied to get into an ambulance with him, and thinking that maybe the universe's sense of humor wasn't entirely sick after all. Maybe it was just complicated. The hospital was chaos. Ethan got processed through the ER with the kind of efficient impersonality that came from too many patients and not enough staff. Questions fired at him faster than he could answer, even when his words were cooperating. Name, date of birth, social security number, insurance information, except he didn't have his wallet, which meant he didn't have his insurance card, which meant the tired-looking intake nurse was already writing him off as another indigent case. We'll still treat you, she said, not unkindly. But without insurance verification, you'll be responsible for... He has insurance, Lily cut in. She'd been standing to the side, trying to stay out of the way, but now she stepped forward. He just doesn't have his wallet. He was robbed. The nurse looked at Lily, then at Ethan, then back at Lily. Do you know his insurance provider? No, Lily admitted, but then I'm afraid we'll have to process him as uninsured for now. The nurse turned back to her computer. We'll run the necessary scans and tests, but I need you to understand that the cost— I don't care about cost, Lily said, which was probably a lie, given that she was wearing a diner uniform and looked about 2 paychecks away from broke herself, but her voice didn't waver. Just help him. The nurse's expression softened slightly. We will, but you should prepare yourself for a significant bill. They took him back after that, wheeled him through a maze of hallways that all looked identical. White walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic trying and failing to cover up everything else. Lily followed until a different nurse, younger and less sympathetic, told her she needed to wait in the lobby. I'm his sister, Lily said again, and Ethan wondered if she'd realized yet that nobody actually believed that. Family only past this point, the young nurse said. You can wait in the lobby. We'll update you when we can. Ethan wanted to say something, wanted to tell them to let her stay, but the words tangled up again, and what came out was just a garbled mess of English and Japanese. The young nurse gave him a look that was pure pity and kept pushing the stretcher. The last thing Ethan saw before they turned the corner was Lily standing in the middle of the hallway, her uniform still damp from the rain, looking small and lost and stubborn all at once. The next 3 hours existed in fragments. Bright lights, cold gel on his chest for the EKG, a CT scanner that sounded like the world ending, someone asking him to squeeze their fingers, first with his right hand, easy, then with his left hand, not easy. A doctor with kind eyes and tired face telling him that yes, he'd had a stroke, a small one. They were calling it a TIA, which stood for transient ischemic attack, and he was lucky, very lucky, because it could have been so much worse. Lucky. Ethan didn't feel lucky. He felt like he'd been hit by a truck, dragged through the rain, and abandoned in a hospital that smelled like death and cleaning products. But the doctor was right, objectively speaking. The stroke had been small, minimal permanent damage expected. His speech would come back fully within a few days. The weakness in his left side should resolve with physical therapy. He was young, healthy, no history of hypertension or cardiovascular disease. This was a warning shot, the doctor said. A wake-up call. Time to examine his stress levels, his work-life balance, all those things that Ethan had been ignoring for the better part of a decade. They were admitting him overnight for observation. Standard procedure. Someone would be by in the morning to discuss next steps, medications, lifestyle changes, follow-up appointments. Is there anyone we should call? The doctor asked. Family, emergency contact? My daughter, Ethan said, and the words came out clearer now, almost normal. Sophie Mori, she's 7, she's at home with her nanny. He rattled off his home phone number, watched the doctor write it down. Anyone else? Parents? Siblings? Partner? No, Ethan said. Just Sophie. The doctor nodded, made another note, left. Ethan stared at the ceiling tiles and tried not to think about how the list of people who gave a damn if he lived or died had exactly 2 names on it. Sophie and a waitress he'd met 3 hours ago who'd lied about being his sister. They moved him to a regular room around midnight. 4th floor, double occupancy, but the other bed was empty, so at least he had that. The room was standard hospital issue. White walls, thin blankets, a TV mounted to the wall that Ethan had no intention of turning on, a window that showed nothing but darkness and rain. A nurse came by, checked his vitals, adjusted his IV, told him to get some rest. Like that was happening. Ethan lay there and listened to the hospital sounds. Footsteps in the hallway, distant beeping. Someone crying, 2 rooms over. The rain against the window, softer now, but still present. His left hand still felt weird. Not numb, not quite, but distant. Like it belonged to someone else. He made a fist, released it, made it again. The movement was there, but it felt wrong, delayed. Like there was lag between his brain and his body. This was what happened when you pushed too hard for too long. When you worked 100-hour weeks and skipped meals and forgot that bodies had limits. Ethan knew that, had known it for years. But knowing something and acting on it were two different things, and he'd been very, very good at ignoring the knowing part. The door opened. Ethan turned his head, expecting another nurse, and found Lily instead. She'd dried off somewhat, though her hair was still damp and pulled back in that same ponytail. She'd gotten rid of the umbrella somewhere. In her hands, she carried a plastic cup of what looked like extremely bad coffee and a paper bag with grease stains spreading across the bottom. "You're still here," Ethan said. "Of course I'm still here," Lily said, like that was obvious, like she hadn't just spent 3 hours in a hospital waiting room for a stranger. She came further into the room, moving quietly, set the coffee and bag down on the small table next to his bed. "They said you had a TIA. That's not as bad as it could have been." "No," Ethan agreed. "It's not. But it's still bad." "Yes." Lily nodded, pulled up the room's single chair, sat down. Up close, in the harsh fluorescent light, Ethan could see that she looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, worry lines around her mouth. She couldn't have been older than 30, but right now she looked older than him. "You didn't have to stay," Ethan said. "I know." Lily picked at a loose thread on her pants, but I kept thinking about... She stopped, shook her head. "My dad had a stroke 5 years ago. I was at work when it happened. By the time I got to the hospital, he was already..." Another head shake. "I just kept thinking about you being here alone, and I couldn't. I had to make sure you were okay." "I'm sorry," Ethan said. "About your dad." "Yeah." Lily's voice went quiet. "Me too." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, an ambulance siren wailed past, going somewhere else, someone else's emergency. "The nurses think you're homeless," Lily said finally. "They didn't say it directly, but I could tell, the way they were talking about payment plans and charity care." Ethan laughed, which hurt. "I'm not homeless." "I know, I figured, but you don't have your wallet, and your clothes are..." She gestured vaguely at where they'd hung his ruined suit. "They just assume." "Let them," Ethan said. "Doesn't matter." "It does if they're not giving you proper care," Lily shot back, and there was that fierceness again, the thing that didn't match her soft voice. "I had to argue with 2 different doctors to get them to do the CT scan. They wanted to just treat you for exposure and exhaustion and send you home. I had to make them listen." Ethan looked at her properly then. This small woman in a diner uniform who'd spent her evening saving his life and fighting doctors and lying to nurses and refusing to leave even when she had every reason to. "Why?" he asked. "Why what? Why did you help me? You didn't know me. You didn't know I wasn't dangerous. I could have been anyone." Lily was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. "You reminded me of someone." "Your father?" "In a way." She picked up the coffee cup, held it between both hands without drinking. "The way you were sitting there, in the rain, looking so, I don't know, lost. It reminded me of how my dad looked sometimes, after my mom died. Like he couldn't figure out how to exist in the world anymore." She met Ethan's eyes, and I kept thinking about how many people must have walked past him when he was having his stroke, before someone finally stopped. I kept thinking about him being alone. "I'm sorry," Ethan said again, because he didn't know what else to say. "You keep apologizing for things that aren't your fault." Lily finally took a sip of the coffee, made a face. "God, this is terrible." Hospital coffee usually is. "I should have brought something from the diner." She set the cup down, pushed the paper bag toward him instead. "I did bring this, though. Soup. It's probably cold now, but it's better than whatever they're going to try to feed you here." Ethan's stomach reminded him that he hadn't eaten since... When? This morning? Yesterday morning? Time had become unclear. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome." Lily stood up, smoothed down her uniform. "I should go. Let you rest. I just wanted to make sure that they were taking care of you." "Lily," Ethan said, and she paused at the door. "Thank you for everything. For stopping. For staying. For fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. He switched to Japanese without meaning to. "I owe you my life." Lily's expression did something complicated. "You don't owe me anything," she said in English. Then in Japanese, "Just get better. And find that friend you were looking for. Tell them thank you, like you wanted to." She left before Ethan could figure out how to explain that the friend was dead, and the person he'd been looking for was the friend's family, and somehow, impossibly, inexplicably, he'd already found them. He'd found her. Daniel Carter's daughter had saved him, just like Daniel Carter had saved him 20 years ago. And Ethan didn't believe in fate or destiny or divine intervention, but he was starting to think that maybe the universe was trying to tell him something. He just had to figure out what. Ethan didn't sleep. He lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling tiles and counting the minutes between nurse visits. Every hour someone came in to check vitals, shine a light in his eyes, ask him to squeeze their fingers. The routine was monotonous, but he was grateful for it. It meant his brain was still working well enough to be worth monitoring. Around 3 in the morning, his phone situation got sorted. A hospital social worker, middle-aged woman with kind eyes, and the weary patience of someone who'd heard every story twice, brought him a landline phone and helped him call his penthouse. The nanny, Maria, answered on the second ring, voice tight with panic that she was trying and failing to hide. "Mr. Morey? Thank God. Sophie's been asking. We didn't know where you were. Your office said you left at 4, and when you didn't come home..." "I'm fine," Ethan lied. "I'm at Mount Sinai. I had a medical incident, but I'm fine. Is Sophie asleep?" "Yes, finally. She wanted to wait up, but I told her you were working late." Maria's voice cracked slightly. "What happened? Are you really okay?" "I will be." Ethan closed his eyes. "Don't wake her. Let her sleep. I'll call in the morning and explain. Can you stay through tomorrow?" "Of course, as long as you need." A pause. "Mr. Morey, should I call someone? Your assistant? Your lawyer?" "No, not yet. I'll handle it in the morning." He was too tired to deal with the circus that would follow once his people found out. The executives who'd panic, the board members who'd demand answers, the PR team who'd want to control the narrative. All of it could wait until he could think straight. He hung up and immediately wanted to call back, ask Maria to wake Sophie anyway, just to hear his daughter's voice. But that was selfish. Sophie needed sleep more than he needed comfort. The social worker lingered. "Is there anything else you need, Mr. Morey?" "Actually," Ethan said, "there was a woman here earlier, Lily. She was wearing a waitress uniform from the diner across from where they found me. Is she still here?" "I'll check." The social worker left, came back 5 minutes later, shaking her head. "Sorry, nobody in the waiting room matching that description. She must have gone home." Of course she had. It was 3 in the morning. She probably had work tomorrow, a life to get back to. Ethan had no right to expect her to stay. Still, the hospital felt emptier knowing she was gone. The rest of the night crawled past. Ethan dozed in 20-minute increments, waking each time to the same white ceiling, the same antiseptic smell, the same distant sounds of suffering. His left hand felt better, not perfect, but better. His words came easier when he practiced them silently. The fog in his head was lifting. By the time wheat gray light started filtering through the window, Ethan had made a decision. He was going to find out everything about Lily Carter. And then he was going to figure out how to repay a debt that had somehow doubled in the space of one night. Morning brought doctors, 3 of them this time, led by the same tired-faced neurologist from last night, now marginally less tired. They ran him through the same tests: squeeze, push, pull, follow the light, what year is it, who's the president. Ethan passed everything. His left side was still weak but functional. His speech had almost completely returned to normal. "Remarkable recovery," the lead doctor said, making notes on a tablet. "But you're not out of the woods yet. TIAs are warning signs. Without proper intervention, 30% of patients go on to have a major stroke within a year." "What kind of intervention?" Ethan asked. "Medication, blood thinners, cholesterol management, lifestyle modifications, reduce stress, improve diet, exercise regularly, and we need to figure out what caused this in the first place." The doctor pulled up a chair, suddenly looking less clinical and more human. "Mr. Morey, I'm going to be blunt. You're 32 years old. You shouldn't be having strokes. We need to run more tests. Rule out underlying conditions. You'll need to see a cardiologist, probably get an echocardiogram, maybe a Holter monitor. This is serious. I understand." "Do you?" The doctor leaned forward. "Because the nurse mentioned you were initially processed as indigent. No wallet, no ID. Now I'm seeing in your chart that you've been upgraded to a private room and somehow insurance verification came through overnight. Want to tell me what's going on?" Ethan glanced at the other 2 doctors, both younger, both watching this conversation with poorly hidden curiosity. "I was robbed," he said carefully. "My phone and wallet were stolen. My assistant must have sorted the insurance issue." "Your assistant?" The doctor's tone made it clear he knew there was more to the story. "Mr. Mori, are you someone I should know?" "No," Ethan said, which was technically true. There was no reason a neurologist should know who he was unless they followed tech news obsessively. "I'm just someone who got lucky last night." The doctor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. Well, lucky or not, you're staying another day. I want to run those additional tests, and I'm recommending you take at least 2 weeks off work. Minimum. Your brain needs time to heal." 2 weeks? Ethan almost laughed. He hadn't taken 2 weeks off since Sophie was born, and even then he'd been answering emails from the hospital. "I'll consider it." "Don't consider it. Do it." The doctor stood, handed Ethan a stack of paperwork. "I'm serious, Mr. Mori. The next one might kill you, and from what I understand, you have a daughter who needs you around." After they left, Ethan sat with that thought. Sophie, who'd already lost her mother, who had nightmares about him disappearing too, who made him promise every single morning that he'd come home. Sophie, who was probably awake now, probably asking Maria where Daddy was, why he didn't call. He reached for the phone. Sophie answered this time, her 7-year-old voice sharp with worry, trying to sound like anger. "You said you'd be home for dinner." "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry." "Maria said you're in the hospital. Are you sick? Are you going to—" She stopped, didn't finish the sentence, but Ethan heard it anyway. "Are you going to die like Mommy?" "I'm not dying," Ethan said firmly. "I promise. I just got a little sick, but the doctors are taking good care of me. I'll be home tomorrow." "You promise?" "I promise." "Okay." Sophie's voice got smaller. "I was scared." "I know, I was scared too." Ethan's throat felt tight. "But I'm okay now, and I'm going to be more careful. I'm going to make sure I'm around for a long time. Deal?" "Deal." A pause. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Who's Lily?" Ethan's brain stuttered. "What?" "Maria said a lady named Lily called this morning. She wanted to make sure you were okay. She sounded nice. Maria asked if she was your girlfriend, and she got all weird and said no really fast." Despite everything, Ethan found himself smiling. "She's not my girlfriend. She's just someone who helped me when I was sick." "Oh." Sophie sounded disappointed. "I thought maybe you met someone. Maria says you should meet someone. Maria should mind her own business. That's what she says about you, too." Sophie giggled, and the sound was so normal, so perfectly her, that Ethan felt something in his chest unknot. "Can I meet Lily?" "Maybe," Ethan said, "if I see her again." "You should see her again. To say thank you. That's what you always tell me to do." "You're right. I should." Ethan glanced at the clock. "Listen, sweetheart, I need to go. The doctors are coming back. But I'll call you later, okay?" "Okay. Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Sophie. So much." After he hung up, Ethan lay there thinking about the fact that Lily had called. She'd gone home, probably gotten a few hours of sleep, and then called his house to check on him, which meant she'd somehow gotten his information, which meant someone at the hospital had talked. He needed to find her before this got more complicated. The opportunity came 2 hours later, in the form of his assistant. Marcus Chen burst into the room like a small, well-dressed tornado, tablet in one hand and phone in the other, expressions cycling between relief and fury. "What the hell, Ethan? I've been calling you for 12 hours. Your phone's going straight to voicemail. The security team was about to file a missing persons report. Do you have any idea?" He stopped mid-sentence, actually looking at Ethan for the first time. "Jesus, you look like hell." "Good to see you too, Marcus." Marcus set down the tablet, ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "What happened? And don't say nothing, because you're in a hospital bed and you look like you went 10 rounds with a truck." Ethan gave him the abbreviated version. The stroke. The robbery. The bench. He left out Lily, for now. Marcus listened, face going progressively paler. When Ethan finished, Marcus sat down hard in the visitor's chair. "A stroke. You had a stroke. A small one." "There's no such thing as a small stroke," Marcus's voice cracked. "Ethan, you're 32. How is this—" "What did the doctors say?" "Stress, overwork, the usual suspects." So basically everything we've been doing for the past 7 years. Marcus looked sick. This is my fault. I should have pushed back more, made you take time off. This isn't your fault, Ethan interrupted. It's mine. I made my choices. Yeah, well, you're making different choices now. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm clearing your schedule for the next month, everything. The investor meetings, the product launches, all of it. Marcus, non-negotiable. The board can deal with it. Actually, speaking of the board, do they know? Not yet. They're going to lose their minds. Probably. Ethan shifted, trying to find a position that didn't make his back hurt. Which is why we're not telling them. As far as anyone knows, I'm taking a planned sabbatical. Family time with Sophie. The doctors recommended it. I'm following their advice. No drama. Marcus stared at him. You want to lie to the board. I want to avoid unnecessary panic and a stock price drop. There's a difference. There really isn't. But Marcus was already typing. Fine. Sabbatical. Family time. I'll draft something. But Ethan, you actually have to take the time off. I can't cover for you if you're still answering emails at 2 in the morning. I know. Do you? Marcus looked up from his phone. Because you've been saying you know for years, and here we are. Ethan didn't have a good answer for that. Marcus sighed, went back to typing. All right, what else do you need? You want me to get you moved to a better hospital? I can have you at Columbia Presbyterian in an hour. No, I'm fine here. You're at a public hospital in a shared room. The other bed is empty, and the doctors are good. Ethan hesitated. Actually, there is something you can do. Name it. I need you to find someone, a woman named Lily Carter. She works at a diner somewhere in Midtown, probably within a few blocks of West 47th Street, late 20s, early 30s, dark hair, speaks Japanese. Marcus's eyebrows went up. Who is she? The person who saved my life last night. She found me on the bench, called the ambulance, stayed with me until I was stable. I need to thank her properly. Okay. Marcus made a note. I'll have someone track her down. Shouldn't be hard. How many diners in Midtown have Japanese-speaking waitresses? Marcus. Ethan waited until his assistant looked up. Be discreet. I don't want her scared. Just find out where she works, where she lives. Basic information. Don't approach her. Why not? Because I'm going to do it myself. Marcus studied him with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. This woman must have made quite an impression. She sat in a hospital waiting room for 3 hours for a stranger. She fought doctors to make sure I got proper care. She deserves more than a gift basket and a thank you card. What are you thinking? Ethan had been thinking about this all morning. I'm thinking about Daniel Carter. Marcus went very still. Ethan. I was looking for his family when this happened. That's why I was in Midtown. I finally tracked down some leads, thought maybe I could find them, make good on that promise I made. Ethan looked at his hands. 20 years, Marcus. I've owed that man for 20 years. He's dead. I know, but his family isn't. And maybe... Ethan stopped, not sure how to explain the strange conviction that had been growing since last night. Just find Lily Carter, please. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded, slipped his phone back into his pocket. I'll have information for you by tonight. Thank you. Yeah, well, Marcus stood, picked up his tablet. Try not to have any more medical emergencies in the next 12 hours, all right? My heart can't take it. After Marcus left, Ethan closed his eyes and tried to sleep. This time, it almost worked. He woke to voices in the hallway. Low, urgent, familiar. His eyes opened to find the room darker. Evening, then, he'd slept through most of the day, and the door cracked open, light spilling in, telling you the patient needs rest. You can't just, I'm family. That voice. Ethan knew that voice. I was here last night. Check your records. A pause. Then, resigned. 5 minutes. And if he's asleep, you leave him alone. The door opened wider and Lily slipped inside, moving quietly, carefully. She was still wearing the diner uniform, but her hair was down now, falling past her shoulders, and she was carrying a different paper bag, this one from a place that definitely wasn't the hospital cafeteria. She saw him watching and froze. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. Ethan's voice came out rough from sleep. I was just dozing. Lily came closer, set the bag down on the bedside table. I brought real food this time, and it's actually hot. There's a Thai place 2 blocks from here that stays open late. You didn't have to do that. I know. She pulled up the chair, sat. In the dim light, she looked tired but determined. How are you feeling? Better. The doctors say I'm making good progress. Good. That's really good. Lily's hands twisted together in her lap. I called your house this morning. I hope that wasn't overstepping. I just wanted to make sure you were okay, and the hospital wouldn't tell me anything because I'm not actually family. I heard. My daughter mentioned it. She sounds sweet, a little worried about you. Yeah, Ethan managed to smile. She worries a lot. Comes with the territory when you've already lost one parent. Lily's expression softened with understanding. I'm sorry. That must be hard. For both of you. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, a siren wailed past. Inside, machines beeped their steady rhythms. Lily, Ethan said carefully, can I ask you something? Sure. Your father, Daniel Carter, what did he do for work? Lily's whole body went tense. How do you know my father's name? You told me, Ethan said, which was a lie, but a necessary one. Last night, when we were talking, you mentioned him. No, I didn't. Lily stood up, taking a step back. I told you about his stroke. I didn't tell you his name. How do you know his name? Ethan cursed himself silently. He should have waited, should have been more careful. Lily, who are you? Her voice was sharp now, scared. You're not homeless. The nurses were talking. They said your insurance came through, that you got moved to a private room. And now you know my father's name when I never said it. So who are you really? My name is Ethan Morey, Ethan said quietly. And I think your father saved my life 20 years ago. Lily stared at him. What? Sit down, please. Let me explain. She didn't sit, but she didn't run either. Ethan took that as permission to continue. I came to New York when I was 16, he said. From Tokyo. I had nothing. No money, no connections, barely spoke English. I was sleeping in shelters, picking up day labor jobs, trying to survive long enough to figure out what came next. The memories were sharp, even after all this time. Cold nights, empty stomach, the constant fear of deportation. One day I was working a construction site in Queens. Off the books, cash under the table. There was an accident, scaffolding collapse. I got pinned under debris. Lily's hand went to her mouth. Most of the crew ran, didn't want to deal with the cops, the questions, but one guy stayed, the architect. He pulled me out, called 911, stayed with me until the ambulance came. Then he visited me in the hospital, paid my medical bills, which I definitely couldn't afford. And when I got discharged, he offered me a place to stay. My father, Lily whispered. He gave me a spare room, fed me, helped me get my GED, taught me enough English to function. He didn't have much. I remember that apartment. It wasn't fancy, but he shared what he had. Ethan's throat felt tight. I lived with him for 6 months, and when I finally got on my feet, got into community college, found a real job, I promised him I'd pay him back someday. He said he didn't want payback. He said kindness wasn't a loan. Lily was crying now, silent tears tracking down her face. He said that all the time, that exact phrase. I know. Ethan looked at her, this woman who had her father's eyes, her father's compassion. I wanted to find him, Lily. I tried, a few times over the years, but he'd moved and I didn't have enough information. Then last month, my company hired a private investigator for something unrelated, and I thought, maybe I could use them to track down Daniel. It took weeks, but they finally found an address. Found out he'd passed away 5 years ago. Found out he had 2 daughters. 2, Lily repeated numbly. My sister, Emma. She's 22 now. In college. I came to New York yesterday to find you. To tell you what your father did for me. To try to... Ethan stopped, struggling for words. To do something. Anything. I owed him everything, and I never got to say thank you. So you were walking around Midtown yesterday looking for me? Yes. And then you had a stroke? Yes. And I found you? Yes. Lily laughed, but it sounded broken. That's insane. I know. You're telling me my father saved you 20 years ago, and then I saved you last night, and we had no idea. Not until just now. Lily sat down, or maybe fell down. It was hard to tell. She put her face in her hands. I don't understand. How is that even possible? I don't know, Ethan admitted. Coincidence? Fate? Dumb luck? Take your pick. My father talked about you, Lily said suddenly, looking up. Not by name. He never said your name, but he used to tell this story about a Japanese kid he helped years ago. Smart kid, he said. Survivor. He always wondered what happened to you. He never knew? You didn't stay in touch? I tried. I sent him letters the first few years, but they came back undeliverable. I figured he'd moved, didn't want to be found. I respected that. Ethan felt the old guilt rising. I should have tried harder. He moved a lot after my mom died, chasing jobs, trying to make rent. It was hard. Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. He would have been happy to know you made something of yourself. He believed in people like that, thought everyone deserved a chance. He gave me mine. They sat there, two strangers connected by a man neither of them could thank anymore, while the hospital hummed around them and the city sprawled outside, indifferent and enormous. So what now? Lily asked finally. Now I figure out how to repay a debt I should have paid years ago. You don't owe me anything. Not you, Ethan interrupted. Your father. And since he's gone, that means you and your sister. He leaned forward, ignoring the pull in his IV line. Let me help you, Lily, however you need. Money, support, anything. Your father gave me a future. Let me give you one. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's paying back a loan that's 20 years overdue. Lily shook her head. You don't understand. I'm fine. I have my job, my apartment. Emma's college is mostly covered by scholarships. We're okay. Are you? Ethan asked gently. Because you're working nights at a diner and spending your free time in hospital waiting rooms. That doesn't sound fine to me. It's enough. It doesn't have to be. Ethan saw her shutting down, pulling back. He needed to change tactics. Look, you don't have to decide anything now. Just think about it. Let me buy you dinner at least. A real one, not hospital food. We can talk about your father, share stories. You can tell me what he was like in the years I didn't know him. Lily hesitated, and Ethan could see her warring with herself. Pride against curiosity, independence against connection. One dinner, she said finally, but I'm not making any promises beyond that. Fair enough. She stood, picked up her bag. I should go. Let you rest. Lily. She paused at the door. Thank you for everything. For stopping in the rain. For fighting the doctors. For being your father's daughter. Her smile was small but real. Get better, Ethan Morey, and figure out who you need to call to get your phone back. Your daughter shouldn't have to worry. After she left, Ethan lay in the dark and thought about promises and debts, and the strange mathematics of kindness. His phone was gone, his wallet was gone, his health was compromised. But somehow, impossibly, he'd found what he'd been looking for. Now he just had to figure out what to do with it. Marcus had the information by morning, delivered on his tablet along with coffee that was only marginally better than the hospital's. He set both on Ethan's bedside table with the air of someone who'd been up all night and wasn't happy about it. Lillian Carter, Marcus said, pulling up a file. 30 years old, works at Mel's Diner on West 49th, been there for 6 years. Lives in a rent-controlled walk-up in Hell's Kitchen with her younger sister, Emma Carter, 22, senior at NYU studying social work. Father Daniel Carter died 5 years ago from complications of a stroke. Mother Rebecca Carter died when Lily was 19. No criminal record, good credit considering her income bracket, which is... He paused, grimacing. Not great. She's pulling double shifts most weeks just to cover rent and her sister's expenses that scholarships don't handle. Ethan took the tablet, scrolling through the information. There was a photo, Lily's driver's license picture, typically unflattering, but he recognized the serious expression, the dark eyes. What else? Not much. She keeps a low profile. No social media presence to speak of. The sister has Instagram, but it's private. Building Super says they're quiet tenants, always pay on time, never cause problems. Marcus sat down, rubbed his eyes. Ethan, what exactly are you planning here? I don't know yet. That's not comforting. It's honest. Ethan set the tablet aside. Her father gave me everything when I had nothing. I need to do something. So, write her a check. Make it big enough to matter. Done. It's not that simple. It actually is that simple. Marcus leaned forward. You want to repay a debt? Money is how that works. Anything else gets complicated. Maybe it should be complicated, Ethan said. Maybe that's the point. Marcus gave him a look that suggested he thought the stroke had affected more than just Ethan's motor functions. You're about to do something stupid, aren't you? Probably. Great. Fantastic. Marcus stood, paced to the window, stared out at the gray morning. Look, I get it. You feel like you owe this woman's dead father. That's noble or whatever. But you're also a billionaire CEO who just had a stroke, and she's a waitress who saved your life. The power dynamic here is I know what the power dynamic is, Ethan interrupted. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're about to bulldoze into this woman's life with your checkbook and your guilt, and you haven't stopped to think about how that might feel from her side. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Marcus was right, annoyingly. So what do you suggest? I suggest you take it slow. Have that dinner you mentioned. Feel out what she actually needs versus what you think she needs. And for the love of Marcus caught himself. Just don't lead with money. Nobody likes feeling like a charity case, even when they need the help. When did you get so wise? I've been managing your messes for 7 years. You pick things up. Marcus grabbed his tablet back. The doctors are springing you this afternoon, by the way. I've got a car coming at 3. Maria's got Sophie distracted with some baking projects, so she won't tackle you the second you walk in the door. I want to see her. You will see her, after you've rested and showered and stopped looking like death. Marcus headed for the door, paused. One more thing. That dinner with Lily? Don't do it at some 4-star restaurant in Midtown. You want her to feel comfortable. Take her somewhere normal, somewhere her father might have liked. After Marcus left, Ethan sat with that advice. Somewhere Daniel Carter might have liked. The problem was, he didn't know what Daniel Carter had liked. His memories of the man were 20 years old and filtered through the desperation of being 16 and homeless. He remembered Daniel's apartment, small, cluttered with architectural drawings and coffee mugs. He remembered Daniel made terrible scrambled eggs but excellent coffee. He remembered the man had a laugh that sounded surprised, like he hadn't expected to find something funny, but there it was, anyway. But what restaurants he liked, what he did for fun, whether he preferred beer or wine or neither. All of that was lost. Ethan picked up the room phone, dialed the number Marcus had included in Lily's file. It rang 4 times before someone answered, background noise suggesting a busy lunch rush. Mel's Diner, this is Tony. Is Lily working today? Who's asking? A friend from the hospital. A pause, voices conferring in the background. Then a different voice, female, suspicious. This is Lily. It's Ethan Morey. The background noise seemed to drop away, or maybe she'd moved somewhere quieter. How did you get this number? I have a very efficient assistant. Listen, I know this is probably weird, but it's definitely weird. Fair, but I meant what I said last night. About dinner. About talking. Ethan realized he was nervous, which was absurd. He gave presentations to rooms full of investors without breaking a sweat, but asking a waitress to dinner had his palms damp. I want to hear about your father, the years I didn't know him, and I need to explain some things about what happened back then, why I lost touch. Lily was quiet for so long, Ethan thought she might have hung up. Then, when? Whenever works for you, tonight, tomorrow, next week? I work nights most of the week. Tomorrow's my day off. Tomorrow then. Is 6 okay? I can pick you up or we can meet somewhere, whatever you're comfortable with. There's a pizza place in Brooklyn, Sal's. My dad used to take us there when we were kids. She gave him the address. It's nothing fancy. I don't need fancy. Good. Because you're not getting it. Her voice softened slightly. And Ethan, don't bring your assistant or security or whatever, just you. Just me? Ethan agreed. After they hung up, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Then he called Marcus back and told him to clear tomorrow evening. A pizza place in Brooklyn, Marcus repeated. You're taking a business dinner to a pizza place in Brooklyn. It's not a business dinner. Then what is it? Ethan didn't have a good answer for that either. The discharge process took 3 hours of paperwork, instructions, and warnings. New prescriptions, follow-up appointments, a stern lecture from the neurologist about stress management and work-life balance. Ethan nodded through all of it, signed what needed signing, accepted the papers he'd probably never read. The car Marcus sent was deliberately understated. A black sedan instead of the usual SUV, no company logo, tinted windows that weren't quite as dark as the ones on his normal vehicles. Ethan appreciated the thought. The last thing he needed was to roll up to his building in something that screamed money. The doorman at his building did a double take when Ethan walked in, then recovered smoothly. "Welcome home, Mr. Morey. Good to see you." "Thanks, Raymond." The elevator ride to the penthouse felt longer than usual. Ethan caught his reflection in the mirrored walls. Still pale, still too thin, wearing yesterday's clothes that someone had laundered but couldn't quite rescue. He looked like exactly what he was, someone who'd barely dodged something bad. The elevator doors opened directly into his foyer. Before Ethan could take 2 steps, Sophie came tearing around the corner, Maria right behind her, looking apologetic. "I told her to wait," Maria started, but Sophie was already launching herself at Ethan, wrapping around his waist with the kind of force that would have knocked him over if he wasn't braced for it. "You're home," Sophie said, muffled against his shirt. "You promised you'd come home." "I promised," Ethan agreed, running a hand through his daughter's hair. She'd inherited her mother's curls, impossible to tame, always escaping whatever clips or bands tried to contain them. "I keep my promises, remember?" Sophie pulled back enough to look up at him, eyes serious. "You look sick." "I was sick. I'm better now." "Maria said you had a stroke like Grandpa Carter." Ethan shot Maria a look. She shrugged helplessly. "She asked. I wasn't going to lie." "It wasn't the same," Ethan told Sophie, crouching down to her level, even though it made his head swim. "Mine was much smaller. The doctors fixed it. I'm going to be fine." "You have to take medicine now?" "For a while, yeah." "I'll remind you." Sophie's expression turned fierce. "Every day, so you don't forget and get sick again." "Deal." Ethan pulled her into another hug, breathing in the scent of whatever fruity shampoo Maria had used, feeling his daughter's heartbeat against his chest. This was what mattered. Not the company, not the board meetings, not the endless pursuit of the next big thing. This 7-year-old who'd already lost too much and couldn't afford to lose more. Maria cleared her throat gently. "I made soup, and there's fresh bread. You should eat something." "In a minute." Ethan stood, kept one hand on Sophie's shoulder. "Can you give us a few minutes? I need to talk to Sophie about something." Maria nodded, disappeared toward the kitchen. Sophie looked up at Ethan with that too-old expression she got sometimes, the one that reminded him she'd been forced to grow up faster than any kid should. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. "No, why would you be in trouble?" "Because you have your serious face on." Ethan tried to relax his expression. "I wanted to tell you about the woman who helped me. Lily. You asked about her on the phone." Sophie's face brightened immediately. "Is she nice?" "Very nice, and it turns out—" Ethan led Sophie to the couch, sat down, tried to figure out how to explain this. "Remember how I used to tell you about when I first came to America? How I didn't have anywhere to live? And a nice man helped you." "Right. Daniel Carter. Well, Lily is his daughter." Sophie's eyes went wide. "The same man?" "The same man. But that's— How did you find her?" "I didn't. She found me. When I was sick on the bench, she was the one who stopped to help." Ethan watched his daughter process this, saw the wheels turning. "So I want to do something nice for her, to say thank you, and to finally pay back the kindness her father showed me." "Like what?" "I don't know yet. That's what I'm trying to figure out." Ethan hesitated. "I'm having dinner with her tomorrow night, to talk. Is that okay with you?" Sophie considered this with the gravity of a judge, like, "Will you be home for bedtime?" "Probably not, but Maria will be here." "Okay." Then carefully. "Do you like her?" "I barely know her, sweetheart." "But you could get to know her, and then maybe like her." Sophie was trying so hard to sound casual, but Ethan could hear the hope underneath. She'd been asking about him meeting someone for months now, ever since her friend Zoe's dad got remarried, and Zoe wouldn't shut up about having a stepmom who baked cookies. "Maybe," Ethan said, because he didn't want to lie, but also didn't want to encourage expectations that would only lead to disappointment. "But right now, let's just focus on being friends, okay?" "Okay." Sophie snuggled against his side. "I'm glad she helped you." "Me too." They sat like that for a while, Sophie chattering about her week, school drama, a science project on volcanoes, something complicated involving her best friend and a boy in their class. Ethan listened with half his attention, the other half already spinning forward to tomorrow night, trying to plan what he'd say, how he'd approach the conversation. Marcus was right that the power dynamic was tricky. Ethan had built his fortune on reading people, on understanding what they wanted and figuring out how to give it to them in ways that benefited everyone. But this was different. Lily didn't want anything from him. She'd helped him because that's who she was, because her father had raised her to stop when someone needed help. Trying to repay that with money felt reductive. Worse, it felt like he was trying to close the account, balance the books, move on. And that wasn't what he wanted. He just didn't know what he wanted instead. The next day crawled past. Ethan worked from home, or tried to. Mostly he stared at his laptop while his mind wandered. Marcus called twice with updates that didn't need updating. The physical therapist came by for an evaluation and gave him exercises that felt simultaneously too easy and impossibly hard. Sophie watched him like a hawk, reminding him about his medication with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been given an important job. By 5:30, Ethan was pacing the penthouse in jeans and a sweater, feeling ridiculous. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been nervous about dinner. Business dinners didn't count, those were performances, and he was good at performing. This was something else. The car was waiting downstairs, same sedan as yesterday. Ethan gave the driver the address in Brooklyn and spent the ride looking out the window, watching Manhattan give way to the bridge. The bridge give way to Brooklyn's familiar chaos. Sal's was exactly what he'd expected from Lily's description. Small, loud, red-checkered tablecloths and photographs of someone's Italian grandmother covering the walls. The smell of garlic and tomato sauce hit him the moment he walked in. And despite his nerves, Ethan's stomach reminded him that hospital food and Maria's well-meaning soup weren't quite the same as real cooking. Lily was already there, tucked into a corner booth, and she looked different out of the diner uniform. Jeans and a green sweater, hair pulled back but looser than the severe ponytail. She saw him and raised a hand in a small wave. Ethan made his way over, slid into the opposite side of the booth. "Hi." "Hi." Lily had a glass of water in front of her, was shredding a napkin into small pieces without seeming to notice. "You found it okay. GPS is a wonderful thing." "Right, of course." She looked nervous too, which somehow made Ethan feel better. "I ordered a large pizza, half pepperoni, half mushroom. That okay? I realized after I should have asked if you had dietary restrictions or—" "It's perfect," Ethan interrupted gently. "Really?" They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Around them, the restaurant hummed with conversation, laughter, the clatter of dishes. A family celebration in the corner, someone's birthday. Two teenagers on what was clearly a first date, both looking terrified. "Your daughter," Lily said finally. "Sophie, how is she?" "She's good. Worried about me, but good. She wanted me to tell you thank you for helping her dad." Ethan smiled. "She's very interested in you, actually. Asked a lot of questions." "What kind of questions?" "Mostly whether you were nice and whether I liked you." Lily's cheeks flushed slightly. "What did you tell her?" "That you were very nice and that I barely knew you." Ethan paused. "She's been asking me to meet someone for a while now. One of her friend's parents got remarried, and apparently it's very exciting. 7-year-olds are big on romance. Huge on it. I keep telling her real life doesn't work like Disney movies, but she's skeptical." The pizza arrived, interrupting them. The waiter, college-aged, harried, deposited it with a cheerful recommendation to let it cool and disappeared. They served themselves in silence, the ritual of food a welcome distraction. Ethan took a bite and was immediately transported back 20 years to Daniel Carter's kitchen, the man teaching him how to eat New York pizza properly. "Fold it," Daniel had said. "The grease drips less that way. And never, ever use a knife and fork." "My dad loved this place," Lily said, watching him. He said it reminded him of the neighborhood where he grew up, Queens, before it got expensive. She took a bite of her own slice, chewed thoughtfully. "He used to bring us here every Friday night when we were kids. Me and Emma. It was our thing. Even when money was tight, he'd find a way." "Tell me about him," Ethan said. "The version I didn't know." Lily looked down at her plate. "He was complicated. After my mom died, he kind of fell apart for a while. Couldn't keep steady work. We moved a lot. He tried. He really did. But the grief was too much." She met Ethan's eyes. "But he was also the kindest person I ever knew. He couldn't pass someone who needed help. It drove my mom crazy when she was alive. How he'd give money to every panhandler. How he'd stop to help strangers change tires. How our apartment was always full of people he'd decided needed a place to crash. That sounds exactly like the man I remember. He talked about you sometimes, Lily said. The kid from Japan who lived with him for a while. He never knew what happened to you after you moved out. Always wondered if you made it, if you were okay. The guilt hit Ethan fresh. I should have stayed in touch. You were 16 and trying to survive. You didn't owe him updates. But her voice suggested she didn't quite believe that, and Ethan couldn't blame her. I sent letters, Ethan said. The first year, maybe 2 years after I moved out. But they kept coming back. I thought maybe he didn't want to hear from me, that I was bothering him. He moved 3 times that year. Job fell through, couldn't make rent. Lily picked at her pizza crust. It was a bad time. He wouldn't have not wanted to hear from you. Life got messy. I'm sorry. You apologize a lot for things that aren't your fault. Lily's expression softened. He would have been proud of you, you know. If he'd known what you became, he believed people could remake themselves if they had the chance. You proved him right. I got lucky. Maybe. But luck only gets you so far. The rest was you. She paused. What do you do, anyway? You never said, just that you're successful. Ethan had been dreading this part. I run a tech company. Software development, mostly. Some hardware. We've done well. How well? Very well. Lily's eyes narrowed. Define very well. We're valued at about $8 billion. She choked on her water. Billion? With a B? With a B. Oh my. Lily set down her glass, stared at him. You're that Ethan Morey, the one who's always in Forbes, the youngest self-made billionaire in tech or whatever. I don't know about youngest. You collapsed on a park bench in the middle of Manhattan and nobody recognized you. I wasn't exactly looking my best. Still, Lily was shaking her head, somewhere between amazed and horrified. A billionaire. My dad helped a billionaire. He helped a homeless 16-year-old, Ethan corrected. The billionaire part came later. Does it make you uncomfortable? That I know? A little, Ethan admitted. People treat you differently when they know. Everything becomes about the money. I can see that. Lily picked up her pizza again, took a deliberate bite. For what it's worth, I liked you better when I thought you were broke. Despite everything, Ethan laughed. Most people have the opposite reaction. Most people are idiots. She grinned. My dad always said you could tell someone's character by how they treat service workers and people they think can't do anything for them. You were polite to the nurses even when you could barely talk. That counted for something. They ate in more comfortable silence after that, the initial awkwardness burning off. Ethan asked about Emma, learned she wanted to be a therapist, that she was brilliant and stubborn, and gave Lily constant grief about not having a social life. Lily asked about Sophie, heard stories about school plays and science projects and the elaborate bedtime negotiations that happened every single night. She sounds great, Lily said. She is. She's the best thing I ever did. Ethan finished his third slice, realized he was actually full for the first time in days. Her mother would be proud of how she turned out. When did you lose her? 7 years ago. Cancer. Fast and brutal. Ethan still hated talking about it, but somehow it was easier with Lily. Sophie was too young to really remember her, which is both a blessing and a tragedy. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. He paused. Is that why you stopped? That night in the rain? Because you saw someone who reminded you of your father? Partly, Lily considered, but also because nobody else was stopping, and that felt wrong. Someone should stop. Most people wouldn't. Then most people are failing at being human. She said it simply, like it was obvious, and Ethan thought of Daniel Carter saying almost the exact same thing 20 years ago. Like father, like daughter. The waiter came by with the check. Ethan reached for it automatically, but Lily snatched it first. My invitation? My check, she said. Lily, I know you're a billionaire or whatever, but this is my dad's restaurant and my dinner invitation. Let me have this. Ethan raised his hands in surrender. Okay. She paid in cash, left a tip that was probably too generous for a pizza dinner, and they walked out into the Brooklyn evening. It was colder than yesterday, clear sky full of stars you could almost see through the light pollution. Can I ask you something? Lily said as they stood on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to leave yet. Anything. What were you planning to do? If you'd found me before the stroke, were you just going to show up and say, hey, your dad helped me, here's a check? Honestly, I hadn't thought that far ahead. Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets. I just knew I needed to do something. 20 years of guilt doesn't go away easily. So do something. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What would actually matter? What would your father have wanted? Lily thought about this, head tilted back to look at the sky. He always said he wished he'd been able to do more, help more people. He had all these ideas, community projects, affordable housing, programs for at-risk kids. But ideas don't mean much when you can't afford to eat. What if you could afford to eat? What if money wasn't the issue? Then I'd probably still be working at the diner because I'm too scared to try anything else. She smiled, but it looked sad. My dad was the dreamer. I'm just trying to keep the lights on. You don't give yourself enough credit. Maybe. She turned to face him fully. Look, I get what you're trying to do, and it's really kind. But I don't need saving, Ethan. I'm doing okay. What about Emma? Is she doing okay? A flicker of something across Lily's face. She's fine. That wasn't convincing. She's in college. It's expensive. But we're managing. Managing isn't the same as thriving. Not everyone gets to thrive, Lily shot back, and there was an edge to her voice now. Some of us are just trying to survive. And that's okay. That's enough. It doesn't have to be, doesn't it? Lily wrapped her arms around herself. You want to know the truth? I'm terrified of what you're offering, even though you haven't offered anything specific yet. Because people like you, people with money and power, you help because it makes you feel good, because it clears your conscience. And then you move on. And the people you helped are left trying to figure out how to live in the hole you left behind. That's not what I want. Maybe not. But it's what happens. She looked tired suddenly, older. My dad helped people his whole life, and you know what? It got him. Dead at 53, broke, with debts I'm still paying off. So forgive me if I'm skeptical about charity. Ethan absorbed that, the anger and hurt underneath it. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering partnership. In what? I don't know yet. Something that would honor your father's memory. Something that would actually help people the way he always wanted to. The idea was forming even as he spoke, pieces clicking together. What if we started a foundation, in his name, used it to fund the kind of projects he dreamed about? Lily stared at him. You're serious. Completely. That's insane. I don't know anything about running a foundation. Neither did I when I started my company. We'd figure it out together. Ethan could see her wavering, curiosity fighting with fear. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. I should go, Lily said abruptly. I need to go. Okay. Ethan didn't push. Can I call you? I guess. Yeah. She was already backing away. Thanks for dinner, you're welcome for dinner, whatever. She turned and walked away quickly, disappearing into the Brooklyn night before Ethan could say anything else. He stood there on the sidewalk, watching her go, wondering if he'd just made everything better or irreparably worse. His phone buzzed. Marcus. How'd it go? Ethan typed back. No idea. Then he climbed into the waiting car and rode back to Manhattan, thinking about foundations and fathers and the complicated arithmetic of trying to repay the unpayable. Lily didn't call. 3 days passed, then 4, then a week. Ethan told himself to be patient, that she needed time to process, that pushing would only make things worse. He told himself this while checking his phone every 20 minutes, like a teenager waiting for a text back. You're being pathetic, Marcus said on day 8, watching Ethan stare at his phone during a meeting about Q4 projections. Just call her yourself. I said I'd wait for her to call. You said she could call you. That's different. Marcus closed his laptop with more force than necessary. Look, I'm going to say this as your friend, not your assistant. You're obsessing. Either do something about it or let it go, but stop this middle ground torture thing you've got going on. Ethan knew Marcus was right. He also knew that calling Lily felt like admitting defeat, like proving her point about rich people bulldozing into other people's lives. So he waited, and checked his phone, and drove Sophie crazy with his distraction. You're thinking about Lily again, Sophie said on day 9, catching him staring out the window during breakfast. I'm thinking about work. Liar? Sophie stirred her cereal with the wisdom of someone far older than 7. You get a different face when you think about work. This is your Lily face. I don't have a Lily face. You do. It's all... Sophie scrunched up her features into something that was probably meant to be wistful, but looked more constipated. Like that. Maria, making coffee at the counter, tried and failed to hide her laugh. Traitor, Ethan muttered at her. I'm just saying, Sophie continued. If you like her, you should tell her. That's what my friend Zoe says. Her dad told her mom he liked her. And then they got married and had Zoe, and now they're happy. Life is more complicated than that, sweetheart. Is it, though? Sophie asked, and Ethan didn't have a good answer. On day 10, Emma Carter showed up at his office. Ethan was in back-to-back meetings, trying to convince himself he was still capable of running a company while his brain kept wandering to Brooklyn pizza places and women who were too stubborn to accept help. His assistant, not Marcus, who had the day off, knocked on his door looking flustered. Mr. Morey, there's a young woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Something about her sister? Ethan was on his feet before he'd consciously decided to stand. Send her in. Emma Carter was younger than her sister, but carried herself with the same careful reserve. College sweatshirt, jeans with holes in the knees that were definitely fashion rather than wear, backpack slung over one shoulder. She had Lily's eyes but a sharper chin, and she looked around Ethan's office with the frank assessment of someone who'd decided not to be impressed. Nice view, she said, gesturing at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Very billionaire chic. Thank you for coming. Ethan came around his desk, gestured to the sitting area. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? I'm good. Emma sat down, kept her backpack on. I'm just here to tell you to leave my sister alone. Ethan had expected this, sort of. Did Lily send you? Lily doesn't know I'm here. She'd kill me if she found out. Emma leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Look, I know what you're trying to do. The big foundation idea, honoring our dad, all of it. Lily told me everything. And you think it's a bad idea? I think it's a terrible idea. For her. Emma's expression was fierce. Do you know what happened the last time someone with money tried to help us? After Dad died, his old firm said they wanted to set up a scholarship in his name. Said they'd fund Emma's education, help Lily get training for a better job. Made all these promises. Ethan had a sinking feeling he knew where this was going. Then the economy tanked and their funding dried up, and suddenly the scholarship didn't exist anymore. But by then, Lily had already quit her better-paying job to do some administrative work for them. And I'd already turned down other financial aid because I thought I had this locked down. Emma's voice was tight. We ended up worse off than when we started. Lily had to scramble to find work. I had to take out loans I wouldn't have needed otherwise. All because someone made promises they couldn't keep. I'm not that person. How do I know that? Because you're richer? That doesn't make you more reliable. If anything, it makes you less. Emma pulled out her phone, started scrolling. I looked you up, you know, after Lily told me who you were. There are articles about you, about how you work 100-hour weeks, how you're always chasing the next innovation, how you almost burned out 3 times before you were 30. That was before you had a stroke and realized you're not invincible? Emma cut him off. Yeah, Lily mentioned that too, and I'm glad you're okay, really. But people don't change overnight. You're the same guy who works himself into the ground. What happens in 6 months when the foundation gets boring? When the next big project catches your attention? You'll move on and Lily will be left cleaning up the mess. Ethan sat back, absorbing the hit. You don't pull punches. Can't afford to. Someone has to look out for Lily since she won't look out for herself. Emma's expression softened slightly. She's been taking care of me since she was 19, working 2 jobs, putting herself last, making sure I had everything I needed for school. She's exhausted, Ethan, and she's scared of hoping for something better and having it fall apart. What if I could promise it won't fall apart? You can't promise that. Nobody can. Emma stood up, shouldered her backpack. Look, I get that you feel like you owe us because of what Dad did, and maybe you do. But the best way to repay that debt? Leave us alone. Let Lily live her life without worrying about whether your foundation is going to implode and take her down with it. Is that what Lily wants? Lily wants to believe in people. That's her problem. Emma headed for the door, paused. For what it's worth, she talks about you. More than she should for someone she's known for 2 weeks. So if you're going to stick around, you better mean it. Because if you hurt her, I don't care how much money you have, I'll make you regret it. After Emma left, Ethan sat in his office and stared at the city below. 53 floors up, everything looked clean and ordered. You couldn't see the broken sidewalks or the trash or the people struggling. You couldn't see the mess. Maybe that was the problem. He'd been so far removed from real struggle for so long that he'd forgotten what it actually looked like. Forgotten that for people like Lily and Emma, help wasn't just complicated. It was dangerous. Because when you were hanging on by your fingernails, someone offering to pull you up could just as easily make you fall. His phone rang. Marcus, probably checking in. Ethan let it go to voicemail. Then he pulled up his contacts, found Lily's number, and before he could talk himself out of it, pressed call. She answered on the fourth ring. Hello? It's Ethan. Your sister just left my office. A long pause. Emma did what? Came to tell me to leave you alone. She's very protective. She's very fired as my sister. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. What did she say? That I'm going to hurt you, and she'll make me regret it. Ethan smiled despite everything. I like her. You wouldn't if you had to live with her. Lily sighed, and Ethan heard traffic in the background, the beep of a crosswalk signal. I'm sorry, she shouldn't have done that. She's right, though, about some of it. Which parts? The part where I have a history of burning out. The part where I might get distracted and move on. The part where helping you could end up hurting you instead. Ethan stood up, started pacing. I've been thinking about what you said, about people with money helping because it makes them feel good, and you're not wrong. Ethan, let me finish, please. He stopped at the window, pressed his forehead against the cool glass. I want to do this foundation thing because it would make me feel better, because I've been carrying around guilt for 20 years and this feels like a way to finally put it down. That's selfish, I know that. It's also human, maybe, but it doesn't make it right. Ethan turned away from the window. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to set up the foundation anyway, in your father's name, like I said, but I'm not going to ask you to be involved. Lily was quiet for a long moment. What? You were right. You don't owe me anything. Your father helped me because that's who he was, not because he wanted something back. So I'm going to honor that by doing the same thing. I'll fund the foundation, I'll hire people to run it, and it'll do the work your father always wanted to do. But you and Emma, you're off the hook. No pressure, no expectations, no strings. Ethan, that's not... You can't just... Lily fumbled for words. That's insane. You can't start a foundation without us. Why not? Because it's supposed to honor my father. How can it do that if his family isn't involved? It'll honor him by doing the work he believed in. That's what matters. Ethan sat back down at his desk. Look, I'm going to do this either way. The question is whether you want to be part of it. And if the answer is no, that's okay. I'll respect that. But I need you to know this isn't contingent on your participation. I'm not holding it hostage to make you feel obligated. You're really serious. Completely. Another long pause. Traffic sounds. Someone shouting in the background. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. Okay. Lily's voice got quieter. And Ethan, thank you for understanding and for not pushing. You're welcome. After they hung up, Ethan called Marcus and told him to start the paperwork for a foundation. Marcus asked approximately 700 questions, all of which boiled down to, "Are you sure about this?" And Ethan answered yes to all of them, even though he wasn't sure about anything anymore, except that doing nothing felt worse than doing something wrong. 2 weeks later, the Daniel Carter Foundation officially existed as a legal entity with seed funding of $50 million and a mission statement that made Ethan cry when he read it for the first time. Marcus had pulled together a team, lawyers, administrators, people who actually knew how to run a nonprofit, and they'd rented office space in Brooklyn, deliberately close to where Daniel had lived and worked. Lily still hadn't called back. Ethan tried not to think about that as he toured the new office space, as he approved budgets and programs and partnerships. He tried not to check his phone every 5 minutes. He tried to focus on Sophie, on work, on the physical therapy exercises that were helping his left side get back to normal. He failed at all of it. "You're miserable," Sophie announced one night during dinner. She'd made this announcement before, but this time she sounded less amused and more worried. "I'm fine, sweetheart." "You're not. You miss Lily." Sophie pushed her broccoli around her plate. "Why don't you just go see her?" "Because she asked for space." Did she, though? Or did she just say she needed to think? Ethan looked at his 7-year-old daughter, wondering when she'd gotten so perceptive. Thinking requires space. Sometimes thinking requires talking. Sophie set down her fork. When I'm trying to figure something out, I talk to you, or Maria, or my teacher, because talking helps me think better. Maybe Lily's the same way. Maybe. So go talk to her. It's not that simple. Why not? Sophie's expression was genuinely puzzled. You like her. She probably likes you. You want to do nice things for her family. She probably wants nice things for her family. What's complicated? The power dynamic, the money, the history. Emma's very valid concerns about people making promises they can't keep. Sophie considered this. Okay, but here's the thing. You always tell me that making mistakes is okay as long as you try to fix them, right? Right. So if you mess up with the foundation or whatever, you fix it. You don't just not try because you might mess up. That's giving up before you even start. Ethan stared at his daughter, who'd somehow managed to articulate in 30 seconds what he'd been struggling with for weeks. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't always listen. Sophie grinned. So are you going to go see her? Maybe, if I can figure out what to say. Start with hi. Sophie went back to her dinner. That's what my teacher says. Start with hi, and the rest usually works itself out. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan sat in his study and drafted a letter. He threw away the first 5 attempts. Too formal, too casual, too desperate, too distant, too everything. The 6th attempt felt closer but still wrong. The 7th attempt, written at 2 a.m. on a legal pad instead of his laptop, finally felt honest. Lily, I'm not good at this. At waiting, at giving space, at any of the things normal people seem to know how to do. I'm good at identifying problems and throwing resources at them until they're solved. But you're not a problem, and I don't want to fix you. The foundation is moving forward. We've got offices, staff, programs, and development. There's a literacy initiative starting next month in 3 different Brooklyn neighborhoods, an affordable housing partnership that breaks ground in the spring, scholarships for kids whose parents died young and left them trying to figure out the world alone. All the things your father dreamed about doing. I wish he was here to see it. I wish I could tell him thank you and sorry, and I didn't forget. I just ran out of time to remember properly. But I can't, so I'm telling you instead. You don't have to be involved. I meant what I said about that, but there's an open board position if you want it. No pressure, no expectations. Just an offer. I miss talking to you. Not about the foundation or your father or any of the heavy stuff. Just talking. About pizza and 7-year-olds and the weather. Stupid stuff. Easy stuff. Call me if you want. Or don't. I'll understand either way. But, Mom? Ethan. He read it over 3 times, decided it was either perfect or terrible, and he couldn't tell which, and put it in an envelope before he could change his mind. Then he addressed it to Lily's apartment in Hell's Kitchen and left it on his desk for Maria to mail in the morning. The response came 4 days later, not by mail, but by phone. Ethan was in a meeting about the Foundation's website when his phone lit up with Lily's number. He excused himself so fast he practically ran out of the room. Hello? Hi. Lily's voice was quiet. I got your letter. And I cried, which was embarrassing because I was at work and my manager thought someone died. A pause. It was really beautiful, Ethan. I meant every word. I know. That's why I cried. He heard her take a breath. Can we meet? I want to talk. Actually talk, not just me running away again. When? Are you free now? Ethan looked at his watch. 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. He had 5 more meetings scheduled, a call with investors, and a product demo he was supposed to attend. Yes, he said. I'm completely free. Where? There's a park near my apartment, Riverside at 79th Street. Can you be there in an hour? I'll be there in 45 minutes. He made it in 35, which meant he had 10 minutes to pace the Riverside path and panic about what he was going to say. The park was quiet for a weekday afternoon, just a few joggers and someone walking 3 dogs who all seemed to hate each other. The Hudson River churned past, gray and indifferent. Lily showed up exactly on time, wearing jeans and that same green sweater from the pizza place. Her hair was in a ponytail again, and she looked tired but determined. Hi, she said. Hi, Ethan replied, and then they both laughed because Sophie had been right. Starting with hi made everything else easier. They started walking, no particular direction, just movement. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Lily said, I talked to Emma about her visit to your office. She's protective. It's admirable. It's annoying. But Lily smiled. She made good points, though, about being careful, about not getting hurt again. She did. The thing is, Lily stopped walking, turned to face him. I've spent the last 5 years being careful, working my safe job, keeping my head down, not taking risks because risks are for people who can afford to fail. And I'm tired of it, Ethan. I'm so tired of being scared. You have every right to be scared. Maybe. But I also have a right to be brave. She shoved her hands in her pockets. My dad was brave. He helped people even when it didn't make sense, even when he couldn't afford to. He believed the world could be better if enough people tried to make it better. And I want to believe that too. So what are you saying? I'm saying yes, to the foundation, to the board position, to trying, even though it scares me. Lily met his eyes. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't make this about guilt, or debts, or paying anyone back. Her voice was firm. If we do this, we do it because it matters, because the work matters, not because you feel like you owe my dead father. Ethan thought about that, about the guilt he'd been carrying for 20 years, the promise he'd made and failed to keep, about whether it was possible to separate the work from the weight of it. I can't promise the guilt won't be there, he said honestly. It's part of why I'm doing this. But you're right. It can't be the only reason, or even the main reason. He took a breath. The main reason is that your father was right. The world can be better. And people like me, people with resources, we have a responsibility to try. That's better? Lily started walking again, and Ethan fell into step beside her. So how does this work? The foundation? What do you actually need from me? Your voice, your perspective, your father's dreams filtered through someone who actually lived them. Ethan had thought about this a lot over the past 2 weeks. I can throw money at problems, but I don't always know which problems need throwing money at. You do. You've lived it. I don't have a degree in nonprofit management or whatever. Neither do I. We'll learn together. He paused. And Lily, you can quit whenever you want. No judgment, no guilt, no pressure. If it's too much, if it's not working, if you wake up one day and decide you'd rather just work at the diner and live your life, that's okay. The foundation will keep going. Your father's name will still mean something. You don't have to sacrifice yourself for this. Lily was quiet for a long time, watching the river. My dad used to bring us here when we were kids, me and Emma. We'd feed the ducks even though you're not supposed to, and he'd make up stories about where the boats were going. Always somewhere impossible. Pirate islands, underwater cities, the moon. She smiled at the memory. Emma believed him every time. I was the skeptical one, always asking how a boat could get to the moon. What did he say? He said some things you just had to believe in, even if they didn't make sense. She turned to look at Ethan. I think he'd like this. The foundation. What you're trying to do. He'd probably tell me to stop being scared and just try. Probably. So I'm going to try. Lily held out her hand. Partners? Ethan took her hand, shook it. Partners. They walked the rest of the riverside path, talking about programs and budgets and neighborhoods that needed help. Lily had ideas, so many ideas Ethan couldn't keep track of them all. Community gardens, after-school programs, job training for people trying to restart their lives. She talked faster as she got excited, hands moving, eyes bright, and Ethan found himself just listening, watching her become someone different from the quiet waitress who'd found him in the rain. This was who she was underneath the fear. Someone who believed things could be better. Someone who'd inherited her father's dreams along with his eyes. What? Lily asked, catching him staring. Nothing. Just, you remind me of him, your father. The way he talked about the future like it was already real, just waiting for us to catch up. Is that good or bad? It's perfect. They ended up at a coffee shop near Lily's apartment, the conversation flowing from foundation work to stupid stuff. Sophie's current obsession with becoming a marine biologist, Emma's terrible taste in boyfriends, the fact that Ethan had never actually watched any of the Star Wars movies, and Lily was personally offended by this. We're fixing that immediately, Lily declared. Next week. You, me, Sophie, Emma, if she's not being annoying. Full marathon. I have meetings next week. Cancel them. This is important. She was grinning now, and Ethan realized he'd never seen her look this relaxed. Besides, if we're going to be partners, I need to know you have basic cultural literacy. I run a tech company worth $8 billion. And you've never seen Star Wars. Clearly your priorities are backwards. Ethan laughed, and it felt good. Easy. Right. Okay, Star Wars marathon. But only if I can provide the food. Deal. Lily checked her phone, made a face. I have to go. Shift starts in an hour and I need to change. You're still working at the diner? Until the foundation is actually real and I'm actually getting paid, yeah. She stood, gathered her bag. Baby steps, remember? I can't just quit my job on the hope that this works out. Fair enough. Ethan stood too. Same time next week? We can go over the program proposals before the Star Wars education begins. Same time next week, Lily agreed. Then impulsively, she hugged him. Quick and tight and over before Ethan could fully process it. Thank you for not giving up and for understanding why I needed time. Thank you for taking the chance. After she left, Ethan sat in the coffee shop for another 20 minutes, nursing cold coffee and feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly. It was too fragile for that, too new. But possibility. The sense that maybe the universe hadn't been cruel when it dropped him on that park bench. Maybe it had been kind in its own strange way. He texted Sophie. You were right. Talking helped. She texted back immediately. Told you. When's the wedding? Ethan laughed and headed home, already thinking about how to explain to his board that he was going to be significantly less available because he had a foundation to build and a woman to not screw things up with. It felt like the best problem he'd had in years. The Star Wars marathon happened on a Saturday, which meant Ethan had to reschedule 3 different meetings and ignore approximately 40 emails from board members who couldn't understand why their CEO was suddenly unavailable on weekends. He didn't care. Sophie was practically vibrating with excitement, and watching his daughter bounce around the penthouse while Maria set up the projector felt more important than any investor call. Is Lily bringing her sister? Sophie asked for the 5th time in 20 minutes. Yes, sweetheart. Emma's coming too. And we have the good popcorn? Not the healthy kind? The most unhealthy popcorn money can buy, Ethan confirmed. Perfect. Sophie arranged throw pillows on the floor with the precision of someone planning a military operation. Lily sits here next to you. Emma sits by me. That way we can pair off for discussions. Discussions about what? About whether Han shot first, obviously. Emma and I already texted about it. We're on the same side. Ethan had no idea what that meant, but he was saved from asking by the doorbell. Sophie shrieked and ran for the door, nearly taking out Maria in the process. Ethan followed at a more reasonable pace, arriving just as Sophie flung open the door to reveal Lily and Emma, both carrying bags that smelled suspiciously like Chinese takeout. We brought food, Lily announced, because Ethan's definition of snacks is probably like artisanal cheese and fancy crackers. I was going to order pizza, Ethan protested. Even worse, we're having real food first, then junk food during the movies. Lily stepped inside, stopped short when she saw the penthouse properly for the first time. Holy, this is where you live? It's too big, Ethan said automatically, which was true. The penthouse had made sense when his wife was alive, when they'd planned on more kids, on filling the space with life. Now it just felt empty most of the time. It's amazing, Emma breathed, already wandering toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. You can see the whole park from here. Sophie grabbed Emma's hand, started dragging her toward the living room. Come see my room. I have a telescope. We can look at the stars later. There are no stars. We're in Manhattan. There are 3 stars, I've counted. Come on. They disappeared down the hall, leaving Ethan and Lily in the foyer with bags of Chinese food and the slight awkwardness that came from seeing someone in your space for the first time. Your home is beautiful, Lily said quietly. It's lonely, Ethan replied, then immediately regretted it. Sorry, that was, honest. Lily set down the food bags, looked at him properly. You don't have to apologize for being honest. They stood there for a moment, neither quite sure what to say. Then Maria appeared, bless her, and took charge of the food situation, ushering them toward the dining room and chattering about how nice it was to have guests. And had Ethan mentioned that Sophie hadn't stopped talking about this all week? Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Emma and Sophie bonded over their shared love of some band Ethan had never heard of. Lily told embarrassing stories about Emma's middle school years, and Ethan found himself laughing more than he had in months. Maybe years. "This is nice," Lily said quietly during a lull when Emma and Sophie were arguing about whether the prequels counted as real Star Wars. "Your family." "It's not much of a family. Just me and Sophie and Maria, who basically raises both of us." "That's more than some people get." Lily's expression went distant. "After Dad died, it was just me and Emma in that apartment. So quiet, I could hear the upstairs neighbor's TV through the ceiling. I used to leave the radio on all the time, just for the noise." "I do that too," Ethan admitted. "The silence gets too loud sometimes." "Exactly." Lily met his eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. The recognition that came from people who'd both lost too much and were trying to figure out how to live in the spaces left behind. The moment broke when Sophie announced it was time for movies, and suddenly they were all piling onto the couch and floor, lights dimmed, opening crawl starting. Ethan had positioned himself carefully on one end of the couch, leaving space, not wanting to presume. Lily sat down next to him anyway, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Just so you know," she whispered as the movie started, "if you don't cry during the right scenes, we can't be friends." "Which scenes are the right scenes?" "You'll know when we get there." 3 movies later, because Sophie insisted they had to at least finish the original trilogy, Ethan had learned several important things. 1. Star Wars held up remarkably well for movies made before he was born. 2. Sophie and Emma were going to be best friends, which meant his life was about to get significantly more complicated. 3. Lily did indeed cry during what Ethan assumed were the right scenes, and she wasn't embarrassed about it at all. "I can't believe you made it 32 years without seeing these," Emma said during the credits of Return of the Jedi. She was sprawled on the floor, half asleep, using Sophie as a pillow. "I had a deprived childhood." "Clearly." Lily stretched, stood up. "Okay, I should probably get Emma home. She has an exam Monday that she definitely hasn't studied for." "I've totally studied," Emma protested, not moving. "You've totally been reading fan fiction instead of your textbook." "Same thing." Sophie looked devastated at the prospect of Emma leaving. "But we didn't get to use the telescope yet." "Next time," Emma promised, "I'll come back and we'll find all 3 of Manhattan's stars." "And the moon. The moon's easy." "And the moon," Emma agreed. There was a flurry of goodbyes. Sophie extracting promises from Emma about future hangouts. Maria pressing containers of leftovers into Lily's hands, despite her protests. Ethan walked them to the elevator, suddenly not wanting the evening to end. "Thank you for coming," he said as they waited for the elevator to arrive. Sophie had a great time. "Just Sophie?" Lily asked, smiling. I had a good time too. Surprisingly good, considering I spent 6 hours watching space wizards fight with laser swords. They're called lightsabers, and you loved it. I saw you tearing up when Vader died." "I had something in my eye." "Sure you did." The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Emma got in immediately, already pulling out her phone, but Lily lingered in the doorway. "Same time next week? For the foundation meeting?" "Actually," Ethan said, making a decision he'd been turning over all evening, "I wanted to talk to you about something. Do you have a minute?" Lily glanced at Emma, who waved her off. "I'll wait downstairs. Take your time." After the elevator doors closed, Ethan led Lily back inside toward his study. It was his favorite room in the penthouse, smaller than the others, lined with books he'd actually read, a desk that had belonged to his father back in Tokyo. The space felt more real somehow. "What's up?" Lily asked, looking around with interest. Ethan pulled out a folder from his desk drawer, handed it to her. "The foundation is opening its first community center in 3 months, in Brooklyn, in the neighborhood where your father worked most of his life." Lily opened the folder, started flipping through the architectural renderings, the program descriptions, the budget breakdowns. "Ethan, this is incredible. It's not just a community center. There's a library, computer lab, meeting spaces for local organizations, job training programs, ESL classes, after-school care." Ethan sat on the edge of his desk. "Everything your father dreamed about building. We're calling it the Carter Center." "The Carter Center," Lily repeated, voice thick. "I want you to run it." Her head snapped up. "What?" "Not alone, obviously. We'll hire a full staff, get you whatever training you need, but I want you to be the director. Make the decisions about programming, about who we serve, about what the community actually needs. Ethan had been thinking about this for weeks, running the numbers, consulting with people who knew the nonprofit world better than he did. Everyone agreed. You didn't run a community center from a corporate office. You ran it from the community, with someone who understood it. You know these neighborhoods, Lily. You lived them. That's worth more than any MBA. Well, I work at a diner. You organize the entire shift schedule, manage inventory, train new employees, and somehow keep that place running even when your manager is useless. Don't sell yourself short. Ethan crossed his arms. Look, I know it's scary. I know it's a huge leap, but you're already doing the work of 3 people at Mel's for minimum wage. Imagine what you could do with actual resources. Lily set down the folder, pressed her hands to her face. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. The offer stands. What if I screw it up? Then we fix it. That's what partnerships mean. Ethan moved closer. Lily, I've built 3 companies from nothing. You know what the secret is? Hire people smarter than you and get out of their way. I can fund this center with my eyes closed, but I can't run it. I don't know how. You do. I really don't. You know more than you think. He waited until she looked at him. Your father believed in giving people chances even when it didn't make sense, especially when it didn't make sense. Let me give you the same chance he gave me. That's not fair, using my dad against me. I know, I'm shameless. Ethan smiled, but I'm also right. Lily laughed, but it sounded watery. Can I at least sleep on it? Make my decision when I'm not emotionally compromised by space wizards and your daughter's adorable face? Fair enough. She called him 2 days later, voice shaking but determined. Okay, yes, I'll do it, but I'm giving Mel's 2 weeks' notice, and I'm telling Emma before I tell anyone else. And if I completely fail at this, you have to promise not to say I told you so. Deal, Ethan said, already mentally rearranging his schedule to make time for the 1,000 things that would need to happen next. Welcome to the team, Director Carter. Oh my God, that sounds so weird. You'll get used to it. The next 3 months were a blur. Lily gave notice at the diner. Her manager tried to guilt her into staying, which made Ethan irrationally angry until Lily told him to calm down. She could fight her own battles. She enrolled in a nonprofit management course at NYU, spent her evenings reading everything she could find about community organizing, social services, program development. Emma moved into Lily's bedroom so they could rent out the second room and build up some savings, just in case. In case of what? Ethan asked when Lily mentioned this. In case you come to your senses and realize you've hired someone completely unqualified. Not happening. You don't know that. But Ethan did know, because he watched Lily transform over those months. Watched her go from nervous and apologetic to confident and decisive. Watched her fight with contractors about accessibility requirements, push back on his suggestions when they didn't make sense for the community, hire a staff that looked like the neighborhood they were serving instead of the board members who were funding it. You're kind of terrifying when you're in work mode, Emma observed one afternoon, watching Lily tear apart a program proposal in a foundation meeting. Good, Lily said. People respect terrifying. Sophie was equally impressed. She'd started spending more time at the foundation office after school, doing homework in the corner while Lily worked. Ethan told himself it was just convenient. The office was between Sophie's school and home. But he knew the truth. His daughter had latched onto Lily with the fierce attachment of a kid who'd been missing maternal energy for years. Is Lily going to be my new mom? Sophie asked one night, direct as always. What? No. Where did you get that idea? Emma said you and Lily are basically dating. You're just too dumb to realize it. Emma needs to mind her business. Ethan set down the report he'd been reading. Lily and I are friends and business partners, that's all. But you like her. Of course I like her. Ethan stopped because he'd been about to say something revealing, and Sophie was watching him with those 2 knowing eyes. She's a good person and a good friend. Daddy. Sophie's voice went patient, the tone she used when explaining something obvious. You look at her the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel. It's pretty gross, but also kind of sweet. I do not look at her like a cartoon character. You totally do. Sophie climbed onto the couch next to him. It's okay if you like her. I like her too. She's smart and funny, and she doesn't treat me like I'm a baby. Those are all good qualities. So ask her out. It's complicated, sweetheart. Why? Because of work? Emma says workplace relationships are fine if you have good boundaries. Emma talks too much. But Ethan pulled Sophie closer, kissed the top of her head. Look, even if I wanted to ask Lily out, which I'm not saying I do, now's not the time. She just started this job. The last thing she needs is her boss making things weird. You're not really her boss, though. You're partners. Still complicated. Sophie sighed dramatically. Adults make everything complicated. When I grow up, I'm just going to tell people when I like them. It seems easier. It probably is, Ethan admitted. The Carter Center opened on a cold Saturday in March, 6 months after that night in the rain. The weather tried to ruin everything, freezing wind, clouds threatening snow, but it didn't matter. Hundreds of people showed up anyway, bundled in coats and scarves, coming to see what had been built in their neighborhood, in Daniel Carter's name. Ethan stood in the back during the opening ceremony, watching Lily give a speech that made half the audience cry. She talked about her father, about his belief that everyone deserved a chance, about how the center wasn't charity, but community, a place built by the neighborhood, for the neighborhood. She's something special, Marcus said, appearing at Ethan's elbow. I know. You going to tell her that? Eventually. Maybe. I don't know. Marcus gave him a look. You had a stroke 6 months ago. You almost died. Life's too short for maybe. Before Ethan could respond, Sophie came running up, dragging Emma behind her. Daddy, Lily says I can help with the library program. I'm going to read to little kids. That sounds perfect, sweetheart. Emma's doing the job training program. She's going to help people with resumes and interview skills. For college credit, Emma clarified, and because Lily guilted me into it, I created opportunities, Lily said, joining them. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold and the crowd, and she looked happier than Ethan had ever seen her. There's a difference. The ceremony wrapped up, and the crowd flooded into the center, exploring the library, the computer lab, the kitchen where cooking classes would happen, the gym where neighborhood kids could play basketball. Ethan wandered through it all, accepting congratulations from board members and local politicians, but mostly just watching people discover the space. An older woman stopped him near the library, tears on her face. I knew Daniel Carter, she said. He helped my son get into trade school 20 years ago, paid the application fee when we couldn't afford it. My son's a master electrician now, has his own business, all because Daniel believed in him. He did that for a lot of people, Ethan said. Not enough people knew. The woman looked around the center at Daniel's name carved into the dedication plaque on the wall. But they'll know now. They'll remember. After she left, Ethan stood in front of that plaque for a long time. Daniel Matthew Carter, it read. Architect, dreamer, friend, 1971 to 2021. And below that, a quote Lily had chosen. Kindness isn't a transaction, it's a legacy. He would have loved this, Lily said softly, coming to stand beside him. All of it. The chaos, the people, the noise. He always said empty buildings were sad. This one won't be empty. No. Lily smiled. It won't. They stood there together, watching the center come to life around them. Somewhere in the gym, Sophie's laugh rang out. Someone was playing piano in the music room. The smell of coffee and cookies drifted from the kitchen. Thank you, Lily said, for making this happen, for keeping the promise. Thank your father. None of this exists without what he did for me. That's not true. Lots of people get help and don't do anything with it. You built something from that help. You earned this. Ethan turned to look at her properly. Can I tell you something? Always. I didn't just want to do this to repay your father. I mean, that was part of it. But also, he struggled to find the words. When I was lying in that hospital bed, when my brain wasn't working right and I couldn't make my hand move, I kept thinking about what I'd leave behind, what would matter when I was gone. And the answer was Sophie, obviously, but also nothing else, just money, just a company that would replace me in a week, no legacy, no point. Ethan, let me finish. He needed to say this before he lost his nerve. You and your father, you showed me what actually matters. Not building wealth, building community, not being successful, being useful. That night in the rain, you saved my life. But you also saved, I don't know, the rest of it, the part that makes life worth living. Lily's eyes were bright with tears. That's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm not done. Ethan took a breath. I know the timing is bad. I know we're business partners and you just started this job and there are 1,000 reasons why this is a terrible idea. But Sophie's right. Wait, Sophie's right about what? That I look at you like Prince Eric looks at Ariel, apparently, and I'm too dumb to do anything about it. The words were tumbling out now, no filter, no polish. I like you, Lily, more than like you, and I know that's complicated and probably inappropriate, and Lily kissed him. It wasn't a movie kiss, smooth and perfect. It was clumsy and quick, and she pulled back almost immediately, looking startled with herself. Sorry, she said. You were talking too much, and I just, sorry. Don't apologize. Ethan was grinning like an idiot. Do it again. She did, and this time it was better, slower, real. When they broke apart, Lily was smiling. For the record, she said, I like you too. Have since the hospital probably, which is weird because you could barely speak and look terrible, but there was something. Hey, I'm just saying you've looked better since then. She was laughing now. But yeah, I like you, even though you're my boss and a billionaire, and this is definitely complicated. I'm not your boss. We're partners. You're still a billionaire. Can't do much about that. I guess I'll suffer through it. Lily glanced around the center, at the people filling the space, at the life happening around them. What do we do now? Now we try, Ethan said. We figure it out as we go. Make mistakes, fix them, keep trying. That sounds terrifying. It really does. Okay. Lily took his hand. Let's do it anyway. Across the center, Sophie spotted them and started jumping up and down, pointing frantically at Emma. Emma looked over, saw them holding hands, and gave Sophie a high five that was probably visible from space. We're never going to hear the end of this, Ethan said. Nope, Lily agreed cheerfully. Those two are going to be insufferable. They were right. Sophie and Emma were absolutely insufferable about it, making smug comments and claiming credit for the whole relationship. But Ethan didn't care. The months that followed were messy and complicated and sometimes hard, balancing work and foundation and relationship, figuring out boundaries and expectations, navigating all the ways two broken people tried to build something whole together. But it worked. Somehow, impossibly, it worked. The Carter Center became a fixture in the neighborhood, then expanded to 2 more locations. The foundation grew, hired more staff, launched programs Ethan had never imagined. Lily thrived in her role, became the kind of leader who inspired fierce loyalty and got things done. Emma graduated and joined the foundation full-time, running youth programs with the same stubborn determination as her sister. Sophie got her wish. Not a new mom exactly, because Lily was smart enough to never try to replace what Sophie had lost. But a presence. Someone who showed up to school plays and helped with science projects and taught Sophie that it was okay to be loud and messy and imperfect. A year after the center opened, Ethan took Lily back to that park bench in Midtown. It was spring this time, warm and bright, nothing like that freezing night in the rain. Why are we here? Lily asked, looking at the bench suspiciously. Because this is where it started, Ethan said, where you stopped when everyone else kept walking. And I wanted to say thank you, properly, for saving my life. He pulled out a small box from his pocket. For giving me a reason to want that life saved. Lily stared at the box. Ethan Morey, if that's what I think it is, I'm going to kill you for proposing at the place where you almost died. It's not, it is, but Ethan fumbled the box open. Inside was a key. It's to the penthouse. Move in with us. You and Emma. That place is too big and too quiet, and it should have family in it. Real family. You. Lily laughed and cried at the same time. You're so weird. Normal people just ask people to move in. They don't make speeches at Memorial Park benches. Is that a yes? Of course it's a yes, you idiot. She took the key, then grabbed his face and kissed him hard. But we're redecorating. That place looks like a magazine spread. It needs actual personality. Deal. They moved in 2 months later, the penthouse transforming from a mausoleum to a home. Emma took over the guest wing, immediately covering it with posters and string lights. Lily filled the kitchen with spices and clutter and the smell of actual cooking. Sophie got a sister who teased her mercilessly and loved her fiercely. And Ethan got the family he'd stopped believing he deserved. Sometimes he still woke up in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced it was all temporary. That he'd wake up on that park bench again, alone and broken and forgotten. But then Lily would roll over and mumble something incoherent, or Sophie would wander in with a nightmare, or Emma would still be awake in the kitchen stress baking for some exam, and Ethan would remember. This was real. The family, the foundation, the second chance he'd been given by a man who'd asked for nothing in return except that Ethan pay it forward. He'd kept that promise, finally. But more than that, he'd learned what Daniel Carter had been trying to teach him all along, that the best things in life weren't earned or bought or achieved. They were given, freely and without condition, and the only proper response was to give them forward, again and again, until the whole world was a little less broken. 3 years after that night in the rain, Ethan stood in the original Carter Center and watched Lily accept an award for community leadership. Sophie sat next to him, 12 now, and impossibly grown, leaning against his shoulder. Emma was at the podium with Lily, making faces to try to get her sister to laugh during the speech. "This is because of you," Marcus said from Ethan's other side. He'd left his role as assistant years ago, and now ran the foundation's operations with the same ruthless efficiency he'd once applied to Ethan's schedule. None of this happens without that stroke, without you being on that bench. That's a depressing way to look at it. It's an honest way, Marcus smiled. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best things. That's life. Ethan thought about that. About 16-year-old him, homeless and desperate, getting rescued by a stranger with a kind heart. About 32-year-old him, successful but empty, collapsing in the rain and getting rescued by that stranger's daughter. About all the moments between and after, the choices and chances and coincidences that had led here. Maybe it wasn't fate. Maybe it was just life. Messy and random and occasionally cruel, but also, sometimes, unexpectedly kind. Maybe the point wasn't to understand it, but to recognize it when it happened. To see the hand reaching down and have the courage to take it. "Daddy," Sophie whispered, "you're doing the weird sentimental face again." "Sorry." "It's okay, it's kind of sweet." She grinned. "Emma owes me $20. I said you'd cry during Lily's speech. She said you'd hold it together. I'm not crying." "Not yet." Sophie settled back against him. "But you will. You always do." She was right, of course. When Lily got to the part of her speech about her father, about kindness being a legacy, not a transaction, Ethan felt his eyes sting. And when she looked directly at him and said that the best things in life happened when you stopped long enough to see the people who needed you, he didn't even try to hide it. Later, after the ceremony, after the congratulations and photographs and Emma's terrible rendition of the acceptance speech, they all walked home together through Manhattan. Sophie and Emma running ahead, Lily and Ethan following at a slower pace, hands linked. "Thank you," Lily said. "For what?" "For almost dying on that bench 3 years ago." Ethan laughed. "That's twisted. But true." She squeezed his hand. "My dad always said things happen for a reason. I never believed him. But now I think maybe he was right. Not about fate or destiny or whatever, just people find each other when they're supposed to, when they're ready to be found." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the city humming around them, alive and indifferent and beautiful. Ahead of them, Sophie tripped and Emma caught her, both of them dissolving into giggles. Above them, stars tried to shine through the light pollution. 3, at least, maybe 4 on a clear night. "I love you," Ethan said, "because life was short, and strokes were real, and some things shouldn't wait." "I know," Lily replied, grinning at the Star Wars reference. Then, softer, "I love you too." And that, Ethan thought, was the real legacy. Not the money or the foundation or the buildings with names carved into dedication plaques. Just this. People choosing each other, day after day, in all the small and large ways that made life worth living. People stopping in the rain when everyone else kept walking. People giving chances when it didn't make sense. People building families from strangers and hope, from broken promises and futures, from impossible pasts. His father had saved him once, 20 years ago. Lily had saved him again, 3 years ago. But really, they'd all saved each other. That's how it worked in the end. You couldn't repay kindness. You could only pass it forward and hope it came back around when you needed it most. The rest of the walk home, Ethan held Lily's hand and listened to Sophie and Emma's laughter and thought about park benches and promises and all the beautiful, complicated ways that broken people learn to be whole.